So back to our channel. Today we are going to start our respiratory physiology with the chapter 53 from Guyton. You can see the organization of respiratory system. So it's just like an introduction. I think everyone knows all these basics. Once again, let us revise them. So first, the glossary terms alveoli. Alveoli are the tiny, thin-walled, capillary-rich sacs in lungs where exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide takes place. And next, coming to diaphragm. Diaphragm is a dome-shaped muscle which is mainly separating the thoracic cavity above from the abdominal cavity below, and the main muscle for the inspiration. Everyone knows. Next, phonation. So this was somewhat important. Phonation is the production of sound which is made by vibration of vocal cords. So we all know when the vocal cords vibrate, then the sound is produced. So that production of sound is called phonation. Next, pleura. Pleura is a thin membranous layer which encloses each lung and lines the thoracic cavity. Pleural membrane, right? And next, coming to respiratory bronchioles. So the smaller bronchioles with occasional alveoli attached to their walls are called as respiratory bronchioles. We will see all these diagrams so that you can get a clear clarity. So next, let us see terminal bronchioles. So these are the smallest airways in lungs. No gas exchange takes place here. So in terminal bronchioles, no exchange. So in the name you can see respiratory bronchioles. Here the exchange takes place, but here no exchange. Terminal, it ends here. So the main respiratory function all know to provide oxygen to the tissues, mainly by exchanging it to your capillaries and removing that carbon dioxide from there. So the main component of respiration is pulmonary ventilation. So inflow and outflow of air between atmosphere and alveoli. Here our atmosphere is involved with our alveoli. So inflow is inspiration, outflow is expiration. So that is mainly called as pulmonary ventilation. And diffusion of oxygen and carbon dioxide between alveoli and blood. So diffusion between alveoli and blood, after coming to alveoli also that blood, it should be carried to the blood so that blood will take it up and get oxygenated, right? So next, transport of oxygen and carbon dioxide in blood, body fluids to and from body tissue cells. So after this taking up, we need to also transport it. And next, regulation of ventilation and other factors of respiration. So how we regulate it? So these are all the main features we are going to study in respiration. So the respiratory system includes lungs, conducting airways like oral nasal cavities, nerves, control the respiration, respiratory center in the central nervous system, and the structures involved in moving air in and out of the lungs like rib cage, intercostal muscles, diaphragm, abdominal muscles. So all this we have already seen. I think everyone will study it in general anatomy, right? So right lung mainly have three lobes, upper, middle, lower, whereas left lung has only two lobes, the upper and lower. So the visceral pleura, pleura is divided into visceral and parietal. So visceral pleura mainly covers the lungs, the surface of lungs, and it is separated by pleural fluid from the parietal pleura. So the fluid which is present in a parietal pleural fluid, the fluid in the uh, pleural space is called pleural fluid, which mainly help to glide the smooth inspiration and expiration. So that because of that fluid, the gliding is smooth in the case of inspiration and expiration. So first, when you start a pathway of lungs, first air is an important one. It enters by means of first your nose or mouth, and next finally enter into the trachea. So from the trachea, trachea is called windpipe. The trachea, it goes to bronchi. From the actually bronchi is divided into two bronchi. These two bronchi further divide into lobar bronchi. After that they divide into segment bronchi. Segment bronchi divide into smaller branches which are called terminal bronchioles. Terminal bronchioles don't participate in gas exchange and they are just referred as conducting zone. So conducting means they are just allowing the air to it. But respiratory zone is where the real exchange takes place. So next, these terminal bronchioles are divided into respiratory bronchioles, which have alveoli and alveolar. So this respiratory bronchioles further divide into alveolar ducts into alveoli, and finally this is the respiratory zone. So where the gas exchange takes place, that is called respiratory zone. Where just they are helpful, where the structures which are helpful for the passage of air, those are called as conducting zone. So now let us see what is a present in respiratory unit. So respiratory unit is also called as respiratory lobule. So they have the respiratory bronchiole, alveolar ducts, alveoli. So that respiratory unit where the gas exchange takes place is mainly in respiratory bronchiole, alveolar ducts, alveoli. So only three structures are involved in respiration. Remaining all are involved in conduction of air. So there are like 300 million alveoli just in two lungs. So like you can see a large number of alveoli, 300 million alveoli just in two lungs, means 150 million in one lung, 150 million in other lung. So each alveolus average diameter is 0.2 millimeters and alveolar walls are thin. Between them there is a solid interconnecting network of capillaries are present. So the blood flow in them is called the sheet of blood flow. Why they are calling sheet of blood flow? Because now the blood flow need to pass between the capillaries, blood vessels. So it is called as sheet of blood flow. So the alveolar gases are in close proximity to blood. I think we need to see diagrams for that to understand them well, otherwise you may get some confusion. So till now what we have discussed, again once again I will show in the diagram. So as we discussed, in the right side of the lung you can see we are having three lobes, whereas left side of the lung you can see only two lobes. And you can see this is the hilum of trachea. We have said that air first enters by trachea, after that they enter into lobar bronchi, after that they enter into other bronchioles are not shown here. I'll show in next diagram. So you can see, as I said, pleura is divided into visceral and parietal. So visceral vein is directly in intact with lung, whereas parietal is somewhat far away. In between this parietal and visceral we have the pleural fluid, and this is the respiratory pathways. Here I can show. So this is the trachea. After the trachea, they divide into two bronchi. After they divide into two bronchi, they divide into lobar bronchi. And after the lobar bronchi, they divide into segment bronchi in each segment. And later that, they divide into small branches. In that small branches, you can get the terminal branches and also respiratory bronchioles. Respiratory bronchioles further divide into alveolar duct and alveoli. So this here you can see these are the nasal conchae. This is the glottis. This is the pharynx, epiglottis, esophagus, larynx and vocal cords are present here. So as the air is entering, they get vibrate and the speech is produced. And these are the alveoli. These are the pulmonary arteries and the pulmonary veins. So this is how a gaseous exchange takes place between a pulmonary capillary and alveolus. Carbon dioxide is taken out from the capillary, whereas oxygen is brought in from the alveolus to the capillary. So here we can clearly see the conducting zone and respiratory zone. So in the conducting zone there is no gas exchange, just they bring the air towards the lung. So the name of the branches are, you can see the trachea, the bronchi, the bronchioles and the terminal bronchioles. But in the respiratory zone you can see we have respiratory bronchioles, alveolar ducts and alveolar sacs. So these three are main important for respiration, whereas in conduction you have trachea, bronchi, bronchioles, terminal bronchioles. And this is a respiratory unit. So you can see the terminal bronchiole, the smooth muscle around it, the respiratory bronchiole, and these bubble like thing, these are the alveolar. In middle this brown one is alveolar duct. So these are the alveolar sacs. These are the elastic fibers which are holding them. As we have discussed, in between the alveolus and capillary there are some small networks. So you can see these are the small networks around them. So this is an alveolus, this is the interstitial space. So alveolus, inside the alveolus, these are the capillaries. This is a vein, this is an artery, and this is a perivascular interstitial space. Here we can see the lymphatic vessel. So the gas exchange between air and blood mainly occurs by membrane of terminal portion of lungs. So all this membrane are called respiratory membrane, also called as pulmonary membrane. So in this diagram we can see exactly that respiratory membrane and pulmonary membrane, by which gives a main model for the transmission of oxygen to the RBC and taking carbon dioxide from the RBC into the alveoli. So respiratory membrane. So the respiratory membrane thickness is 0.2 mm, average of 0.6 mm, and the surface area is like 70 meters square. So if you take it in the case of floor area, it is like 25 to 30 feet room. That much surface area is present. So the blood in the capillary of lung is like only 60 to 140 milliliter. So there is so rapid exchange because you can see the blood volume is very low, just in milliliters, but the surface area is very large. So this blood can easily spread out and easily exchange. So rapid exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide in this large surface is easy mainly by plasma as RBC in close contact to the capillary wall. Actually, here there is no need to enter into the plasma because you can see here the oxygen can directly come into the RBC. In between the plasma is there, but the RBC you can see it's very close to this respiratory membrane, so there is no need of transmission of this oxygen into plasma. It can directly go into the RBC instead. And you can see here the average diameter of capillary is just 5 millimeter, mean RBC should squeeze through it. So RBC will squeeze through it, so no need to transfer the by plasma as RBC is in close contact to the capillary wall. Next, let us see some of the physical laws. Now we need to apply the physics here. We need to add the physics here. So before adding physics there, we will discuss in detail about this respiratory membrane, what are the contents, what it has. So you can see the first layer, this is the alveoli and this is the RBC, right? So let us see. So you can see at the alveolar side, you have the first one is the fluid and surfactant layer. We need the surface area. So this is the first surfactant layer. And next to the surfactant layer, you have the alveolar epithelium. You can see epithelial lining. So alveoli also have epithelial lining, and next to the epithelium lining, always the supporting structure should be the epithelial basement membrane. So here's the epithelial basement membrane. So in between this alveolar membrane and this RBC this capillary membrane, in between you can see we are having an interstitial space between this both. And after the interstitial space, we have again the capillary basement membrane, and we have the capillary endothelium. So these are the all layers which are present in a ultrastructure of alveolar respiratory membrane shown in cross section. So once again let us see, the first one is alveolar epithelium. First one is fluid surfactant layer. Second one is alveolar epithelium. Third one is epithelial basement membrane. Fourth one is interstitial space. Fifth one is capillary basement membrane. Sixth one is capillary endothelium. So this is how the membrane is arranged. So these are the contents of the respiratory membrane. So you can see different layers of respiratory membrane. A layer of fluid containing surfactant lines the alveolus and reduces the surface tension of alveolar fluid. Second one, the alveolar epithelium, which is composed of thin epithelial cells. Third one, an epithelial basement membrane. Fourth one, thin interstitial space between alveolar epithelium and the capillary membrane. Fifth one is a capillary basement membrane that in many places fuses with alveolar epithelial basement membrane. Sixth one is a capillary endothelial membrane, as we already discussed. So all this are like this. So total we got the 6 structures, right? So now we will go to the physics laws. So in physics laws, we have Boyle's law, Charles law, all this. So let us see the laws. First, let us start with Boyle's law. So Boyle's law, what it says is in constant temperature. So always remember, in Boyle's law the temperature is constant. So the volume of dry gas is inversely proportional to the pressure extended unit. So no need to remember all this. Just remember important here, Boyle's law, constant temperature. The formula is P1 V1 is to P2 V2 at a constant temperature. So here P1 and V1 are original pressure and volume, whereas P2 and V2 are new pressure and volume. So next comes the Charles law, the volume occupied by mass of gas at constant pressure. So here the keyword is constant pressure. It's directly proportional to absolute temperature. So we have the formula here, V by T is equal to constant, that is volume divided by absolute temperature, which is measured in Kelvin, is equal to constant. As I'm saying it so fast because it's not so important. Next, going to ideal gas law. Boyle's and Charles law combined together, giving an equation of state, that is PV is equal to nRT. So here P refers to pressure, V is volume, and N is the number of gram moles of gas, and R is a universal gas constant. So T is the temperature in Kelvin, which shows the behavior of real gas. And next goes to Avogadro's law. Under the same condition of temperature and pressure, the equal volume of different gases contain equal number of molecules. So the volume occupied by 1 mole of gas is equal to 22.4 liter at the standard temperature and the pressure of 1 atmosphere, and same for all gases according to Avogadro. See, those are just laws. Once you can see if you want, or else also you can leave them. It's not so important. Next, let us see the Dalton's law. So in a mixture of gases, the total pressure exerted is equal to the sum of partial pressure of individual component gases. So like this is the pressure given by individual gas. So the partial pressure is the pressure that each gas would exert if it is alone occupied volume of mixture at the same time. And Henry's law, this is these three are new laws. Henry law is that it states that at constant temperature, the amount of gas dissolved in liquid will be directly proportional to the partial pressure of gas with which liquid is in equilibrium. And next we have the Graham's law in the gas phase, which states a rate of diffusion of gas is inversely proportional to molecular weight. And next we have the Fick's law. It says that the net diffusion rate of gas by the membrane is directly proportional to tissue area and the difference of partial pressure. So here P1 minus P2 is the partial pressure between two sides and it is inversely proportional to the thickness. So here the V gas is equal to A into D into P1 minus P2 divided by T. So here D is a constant which depends on solubility of gas and it is inversely proportional to the molecular weight. So D is directly proportional to solubility divided by square root of molecular weight. So these are just you need to see them, that's it, not so important. Now this is the important part, let us understand this. The non-respiratory function of lungs. So always we know lungs always involved in respiration, but it also has some speciality in non-respiratory function. The first one is filtration. You know the hairs which are present in our nostrils, they can filter the large particles. So removal of the particles by turbulent precipitation. So what is this turbulent precipitation? Let us see. Actually, you know the air which flows opposite to the direction. For example, now this is the air which is moving like this, and this mobile is now crossing it like this. So this is like giving turbulence because this is moving in this direction and the mobile is moving in this direction. So both two opposite gases air move very fast and they collide with each other. The air can need to if for example this is air, it if this mobile is coming here, it tries to change its direction, whereas the particles which are coming, they come and directly collide here and they get stick here, they'll not change their direction. We'll see here, you can see the air, the nasal passage obstructing the veins concave, turbinate and cause the turbulence of air, septum and pharyngeal walls. So the air need to change the direction when hitting the uh, you know when hitting the obstruction, but the particles can't, so they hit them and they stick with the mucus and collected at the pharynx by cilia transport and they are swallowed later. So that is how I'm saying. So for example, this is a particle, my hand is air. If the air is coming towards this, it tries to change its direction, whereas this is a particle which come and collide here. Because of collision, it will now form into mucus and it will go into the pharynx. So for example, let us see the different particles at different sizes. So you can see if the size of a particle is less than 6 μm, they can't enter the lungs. They're easily trapped and they're get out from a body. Whereas if the particle is between 1 and 5 μm, then they settle in the smaller bronchioles, result of gravitation precipitation. So gravitation precipitation means because of gravitation, you know, these particles are less than 6. So because of that, they can easily get settled there. Large particles can be filtered, but these are like very small particles, so they can't be filtered. They go into the smaller bronchioles and settle there. And next, terminal bronchial disease. For example, if someone have terminal bronchial disease, mainly common in coal miners because of settled dust. So because of more dust settled there, they may get the terminal bronchial disease. And that, so you can understand the coal particle is in the size between 1 and 5 μm, so that they can settle there. And if the particles are less than 1 μm in diameter, they diffuse in alveolar walls and adhere to the alveolar fluid. So if the particles are so small than 1 μm, then they may go into the alveoli and get stick there. So if the particle is less than 0.5 μm in diameter, they remain suspended in alveolar air and expelled by the expiration. So we need to remember the size of the particle and according how they are maintained in our body. So you know cigarettes molecules are like 0.3, means they are less than 0.5 up to like, then according to that you should know that they should be in alveolar and expelled by expiration. But unfortunately the cigarette smoke, up to 1/3 of them, they precipitate in the alveoli unfortunately by diffusion process, with the balance remaining suspended and expelled in air. So like this is an unfortunate thing when compared to cigarette smoke, because if it is less than 0.3, it can easily be expelled out, but 1/3 of it is always getting remained in the body, in the lungs. So now let us see other immune functions which are done by our respiratory system. You know, alveolar valves have tissue macrophages, so they phagocytose the particles entrapped in the alveoli. You know, macrophages which already phagocytose the bad particles, Many of the particles entrapped in alveoli are removed by alveolar macrophages and they're carried away by lung lymphatics. So when they're taken up, they are drained by means of lymphatics. So if the particles are digestible, like macro digest them and release in digestive products into the lymph. But if they are not digestible, then their macro often form giant cell capsule around the particle and next slowly dissolve. So they are commonly formed in tuberculosis. You know, tuberculosis is not digestible. Because of this reason, as they are not digestible, they are converted into giant cell, and the silica dust particles are also non-digestible and carbon particles are also non-digestible. So this kind of non-digestible particles are formed into giant cell, whereas the digestible particles are easily digested and they are drained into the lymph. So if the particles are in very large size, they grow fibrous tissue in the alveolar septa, and they may also lead to permanent disability. That like they may permanently damage the lungs if the particles are very large size because they are growing the fibrous tissues around them. And next, going to the metabolic functions. So lungs not only have the respiratory function, they also have some metabolic functions. Like you know, the endothelial cells, they mainly metabolize the metabolic and vasoactive substances like proteins, lipids, cytokines, vasoactive amines. So all these are metabolized by our lungs. So mainly, you know, angiotensin 1 is converted into angiotensin 2 by angiotensin converting enzyme, and serotonin is metabolized by endothelial cells after being internalized into the cell, and the substances synthesized and secreted by endothelial cells include cytokines. So you know, cytokines are also released from endothelial cells, prostaglandin, cyclin, nitric oxide, clotting factors. So all these are released from a endothelial cell. So even the lungs also have a metabolic functions. So now we are going to the vocal cords. So vocal cords have vocalization, phonation. So the speech involves not only respiration but also specific speech nervous control centers in cerebral cortex, respiratory control centers of brain, articulation and resonation structures of mouth and nasal cavities. So speech is having mainly two mechanical functions, one is phonation, articulation. So phonation is achieved by larynx, articulation is achieved by surface of mouth. So remember, articulation, mouth AM, phonation by larynx PL. So phonation, the larynx is especially adapted to act as a vibrator. Vibrating elements are vocal folds, commonly called vocal cords. So you can see here the vocal cords. So these are vibrating because of respiration. And in phonation, the cords move to get together. In phonation, cords move together. So passage of air between them may cause the vibration. As they're moving together, the air passes between them and cause the vibration. So the pitch of vibration is mainly determined by the degree of stretch of cords, but also by how tightly the cords are approximated to one another by mass of edges. So like how they are based on their arrangements, based upon their degree of stretching, on all this, the pitch of the vibration is dependent. So the slips of muscle in vocal cords change the shape and mass of vocal cord, sharpening them to emit high pitched sound and blunting them for more bass sound. So if your vocal cord is more sharpening or like more changing in shape, then it will be more sharpening voice if you have. Whereas if your vocal cord is blunted, then you'll have some bass sound behind. So the last part here we are with articulation and resonance. So we already know articulation is done by our mouth, and resonance we'll see resonators include mouth. Resonators also include mouth, nose, associated nasal sinus, pharynx, chest cavity. So all these are helpful for production of sound. So the functional nasal resonators are demonstrated by change in voice quality when person has severe cold that blocks the air passage to this resonator. So that's why you know whenever we got cold, whenever we are suffering with common cold, our nasal pathway is blocked, so the air going into the quality changes. So because of that, even our voice also changes. So now let us see the acid-base balance. So there are chemosensors that mainly monitor the carbon dioxide and hydrogen ion concentration in the blood, and any change in that indicates the accumulation of carbon dioxide in arterial blood leads to alterations in respiratory rate. So this is controlled by centers in CNS. So these chemoreceptors can sense this change in carbon dioxide and hydrogen ions. So whenever you can say there indicates the accumulation of carbon dioxide in arterial bloods lead to alterations in respiratory rate. So this is controlled by the centers in CNS. So about this we'll also see in detail in our renal physiology. Just now we are discussing about the importance in respiration. So let us see here the non-respiratory functions we have seen just now, so we can understand. Filtration function, we see the air passage according to it. We also seen immune functions, like it is producing lot of factors, and metabolic function, it is producing endothelin, nitric oxide. Phonation, that is producing the ability of sound because of air, the vocal cords vibration, and acid base balance. So these are all the non-respiratory functions of lung. So you can see here, this is a transverse arytenoid muscle, and this is a posterior cricoarytenoid muscle, and this is an arytenoid cartilage. And here you can see this is a thyroid cartilage, this is a vocal ligament, this is a thyroarytenoid muscle, this is the lateral cricoarytenoid muscle. So this all we'll see already. You can see this in anatomy, but here just let us see. This is a full abduction of our vocal cord. This is a gentle abduction. We know abduction is moving away, right? So it is intermediate position, loud whisper. So if in whisper case our vocal cord will be in this shape, and stage whisper it will be in that shape. And phonation while producing proper sharp voice, then our vocal cord will be like this in closed state. Here they given this physical laws application we already discussed. So by this we completed our basic introduction organization of respiratory system physiology.